Welcome to the Immune Edit. I'm Dr. Doug Jones. If your immune system feels like the enemy, or you're just tired of not feeling like yourself, this space is for you. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in and listening today. Wow, what an incredible week this past week has been. And I just want to start by saying, for anyone out there, for any reason, that's hurting, in pain, frustrated, angry, whatever the case is, I just have a tremendous amount of compassion for you, for all, no matter what side somebody is on any issue. I think the message I want to convey is one of compassion, because I think we need to start with a little more compassion towards ourselves and compassion towards others, and realizing that no matter what our viewpoints, force and violence aren't solutions. They just perpetuate problems. Understanding, respect, compassion, love is more part of solutions. And I am more interested in that. We're at a pivotal time in life. It is time for each of us to take accountability for us. Be the leader of your life. What kind of human do you want to be while you're doing the things you do? And I think that's important, because we're all busy doing things. But who are we while we do them? And that's kind of one of the things I want you to think about today. Do you want to be that person, or do you want to be that person? What do I mean by that? Do you want to be the person that complains, blames, puts others down so that you look bigger, or trying to put others down so that you look more elevated? Do you want to be someone that takes accountability, who loves, who has compassion, who chooses people over things? Do you want to be the person who is focused more on who's right or what's right? Who is emotionally mature enough and stable enough that you don't have to blame and complain or put others down in order to feel better about yourself? Blame and finger pointing is not leadership. Division is not leadership. Unity and accountability are. Putting others down is not leadership. Lifting is. Motivating and inspiring is. Cloaking bigotry and racism, sexism, homophobia, elitism isn't leadership. It's prejudice. It's discrimination. Especially if it's being done in the name of like free speech. Standing up to help the one, the marginalized, or those who have not had a voice is leadership. Conspiracy theories, fake science, it's not leadership. Truth and transparency are. Holding people to a standard and accountability is leadership. Again, leadership is not about who's right. It's about figuring out what's right. And I think for us, again, we can be leaders of our own lives. Do we want to be a constant part of the problem? Or do we want to make an edit in our life to be the solution in life? Instead of going straight to a window of blame and complain, look in the mirror of change and refrain first. And if you're not liking that sight of what you're seeing in the mirror, then make a decision. Make a decision to do whatever deep work on yourself is necessary so that you can first look in that mirror. Not that we require perfection, but can we accept? Can we have compassion on who's in that mirror? And can we resolve to lift, to lead, to be a part of the solution, instead of immediately not looking in the mirror, but instead of going to that window of blame and complain and pointing the fingers at someone else? Start with you. Ask yourself some tough questions. Get help if you need to. I did. I needed it badly. I needed intense professional help, and I got it for months. And I had to dig really deep within me just to be able to accept what I was looking at in the mirror. I was in a free fall. And what was happening was it was hard for me to accept certain parts of what I was and who I was. And I didn't know what to grasp onto. So through a lot of actually intense therapy, if you've ever heard of EMDR, I did it, a lot of it. And it was really helpful because I needed to find something to grasp onto in a free fall. After going through question after question, rooting out things within me and digging really deep, I actually found what my internal compass is. And how I found that was, again, through the help of a masterful therapist and counselor. We asked the tough questions of, in those times in my life when it was most challenging, most difficult, or I knew I had to make certain changes, what was the one thing that guided me through that? We went through various aspects of that. Long story short, it's compassion. Compassion is the single thing that, if I track back through every aspect of my life, when perhaps I had some challenges, was difficult, was angered, was frustrated or sad, or whatever the circumstance, every time when I got to a low point, I would lean into compassion. And one of the things that I had to learn was I had to start with compassion for myself first, but then really lean into compassion for other people. This may not be your compass. You may have something else, which is great. We're all different. I'm just saying that's mine. And so in these times right now, as we're going through a difficult time, and maybe you're angry, frustrated, hurting, in pain, dig deep within yourself. Find what your compass is. Find that thing that can pull you through on the side of, again, being part of a solution to the world, not perpetuating the problem. You matter, and you can absolutely make a difference in your circle of influence. We have to start somewhere. We have to do something different. In fact, if you have various strong disagreements with one side or the other, instead of always trying to prove them wrong, try for once to prove them right. Just take that mindset and genuinely try to prove them right. And maybe perhaps start seeing some common ground and have some respect. Not that you essentially have to come to a complete agreement, but perhaps by trying to prove them right, to seeing things from their perspective, we can at least have some compassion. And even if we don't agree with it, we could at least respect and see where they're coming from and have a little more harmony within us. Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great. And he often says, and it's a business book, and he said, too often in business, leaders will spend a lot of time catering to the low performers. And ultimately, the high performers get kind of punished because everyone's trying to make accommodation for the low performers. One of the concepts of that book is to, instead of going down, rather lifting the low performers up to a high performance standard. There's no need to marginalize or degrade, but what we can do is have a standard and try to lead within ourselves and motivate to inspire to bring others higher. When we talk about the window versus mirror analogy of looking through perhaps the window of blame and shame, where we're trying to point the finger at other people before we look in a mirror at ourselves, there's also another interesting way to think about this. Leaders, when there's success, will actually look through the window first to praise the others that were doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. They will look in the mirror last when there's success. When there's challenges or problems, leaders look in the mirror first to see what they can be held themselves accountable for and what can be changed. They look through the window of blame last. And I think this is kind of a litmus test, if you will, for yourself, but also as we look to choose our leaders on a bigger level. What kind of leaders are we? When there's success, are we looking in the window, looking through the window to give credit to others around us first and looking at ourselves last? Or is it the reverse? When there's success, are we just looking in that mirror first and congratulating and pat ourselves on the back first and then acknowledging the others around us last? Or when there's a challenge, what are we looking at first? The mirror or the window? That's the test for ourselves. And I think as we shift that, we will then shift to being more of the solution and less of the problem. When we start with ourselves, then we will dictate more of, as we go to vote or choose for other leaders, look at those characteristics. Watch, learn, understand, see how they react, see how you react. Are they honest with themselves and others? Do they have compassion, work ethic? We're each in control of us. So again, the edit that I would say in really tough times, which mirror and windows are we looking at in the tough times? Which mirror and windows are we looking at in the times of success? Hopefully, no matter what that is, because my compass is compassion, I would encourage you to have more compassion for you and for those around you. No matter what the beliefs, no matter what the arguments, lean in with compassion. And then next, I want you to find what your internal compass is. What is that single thing that you can hold to when you feel you're in a free fall? It starts with each of us. And hopefully we can just take some time in quiet, in silence, away from social media. Because social media ultimately is trying to dictate where you're at. Take control of it. Don't let it control you. Take control of yourself. You're in charge of yourself. Validate yourself. Get to that point. And if you need help, like I did, get it. Because sometimes it's really, really hard to do it alone. And I hope people don't feel alone. And I hope they feel that they can get that help that's necessary. And not necessarily the help that you want to hear, but that help that you need to hear. I think that's a really key part, because what social media will do is it will just continue to feed your bias. It will continue to feed what you're going to click, like, and share. That's all it's going to drive to. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need. And half or more is probably fake anyway. So we have to hold on to some of these things in our lives of substance. Take a moment of silence. Take a moment of meditation, of prayer, of whatever you need to do. Like, detach and get away and get into yourself and ask the deep questions. Ask the hard questions. Settle with yourself first. Be part of the solution instead of perpetuating the problem. Make sure we're looking in that mirror at ourselves first in the times of challenge, and through the window of blame last when it comes to that. I know this was kind of a deep segment, but it's something that it's just something that's been on my mind over the last week. Change has to occur. It just has to. And I think instead of us allowing things to be out of control, we need to each take control and start having that control over ourselves and leaning into those things that are going to lift, that are going to inspire, that are going to motivate, that are going to promote unity, that are going to promote more love and compassion and respect for each other, not violence, not hate, not the things that are part of the perpetuation of the problem. Till next time, let's make the edits within ourselves that we need, and I will get back on medical topics next time. Thank you. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on The Immune Edit. This show is separate from my clinical practice at Global Allergy Immune Network. This show represents my opinions and my guests' opinions. Neither myself nor the show endorses the views or statements of my guests. This show is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. This show is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner. It's important to have someone in your corner who is a trained and licensed healthcare practitioner who can help you make changes, especially when it comes to your health.